Hey, hello everybody. My name's Amanda Archibald, and I'd like to introduce you to my partner in a really exciting course that we have upcoming called Culinary Fundamentals for Clinicians and Coaches. Kate from the UK.
I'm in the UK. Welcome to my kitchen. My name's Kate Waters. I'm a nutritional therapist and a chef, and I'm going to be showing you how to make a mung bean and coconut curry today. And Amanda's going to give you the science behind it.
I will. So I'm Amanda Archibald. Kate and I have been talking about producing this course for probably over a year. And what we're going to do in this session is actually give you a taste of what we are not only cooking in this course, but how it's informed by science. So my background is I'm a registered dietitian. My specialty is nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, and how we translate that to the plate, which is culinary genomics. And together, Kate and I have been talking about how do we help nutrition and health experts answer these questions that we have about cooking and that our clients are asking us about cooking. Things like, how do you properly heat or season a pan? What's the optimal temperature for toasting nuts and seeds? What are some of the best ways to work with fresh and frozen seafood? Is fresh better than canned? Is there a difference between using dried herbs and fresh herbs? You get it, because you get these questions all the time. I get these questions all the time. And Kate, do you get those questions too?
Certainly do.
So what we thought we'd do is give you a quick glimpse into what this course is all about, where we're combining food science and nutrition science and culinary science and walking it right into the kitchen so you can see how to translate all these fields of science and come up with evidence-based precise information that you not only can use yourself, but you can share with your clients, because that's what this is all about. There's no course out there that actually combines all these areas. So that's why we've created the course. And like I said, we're going to actually show you today what part of a session may look like. And the topic that we've chosen, which will be featured in our course, but we're going to hone in on today, are spices. So I'm just going to talk very quickly about two takeaways that we want you to know about spices before Kate blooms them and unfolds them in a kitchen in a beautiful mung bean coconut curry, which she's producing in the UK and I have to look at here in the US. So two major takeaways from working with spices, because we have a lot of questions. First of all, spices are inherently brilliant free radical scavengers. So they are potent antioxidants, but they are also potent inhibitors of lipid peroxidation. So that's the first thing. We probably know that already, but here's what's really important, that spices, when you combine them, have a synergistic effect. In other words, the potency of their ability to scavenge free radicals or prevent lipid peroxidation is enhanced when you work with them together in a blend. So more is actually better than a single spice. Not that working with a single spice doesn't have value. So there you have a tip right there. When you're working with your clients, if you want to get the best return on ingestion, then use more than one spice in a dish and you'll amp that return on what your body's seeking from a nutrition perspective. So on that note, I'm going to take myself off camera and hand you over to Kate, who's going to translate that food science and culinary science into something artful, flavorful, and enhancing for the human operating system. Off you go, Kate.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with just talking about herbs and spices really quickly and about toasting or blooming them. So obviously, as Amanda said, we're looking at minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and bioactives within the herbs and spices that we use. But we also want to think about the depth and complexity that they give to a dish, how they lift and lighten dishes and the flavor. Seeds tend to have more minerals, and the leaves and stems tend to have a little bit more on the vitamin department. So combining both of them in a dish really kind of means you're getting more bang for your buck with your nutrition. So toasting spices is doing it with a dry heat. Spices tend to burn much quicker when you're doing it this way. It's okay for seeds. So there's a lovely Indian thing where they serve it after a meal. It aids digestion, called mahua. I'm probably pronouncing it really badly. But it's toasted seeds like fennel, aniseed, sesame linseeds, coriander seeds with a little bit of desiccated coconut. They might add powdered cinnamon, licorice, or cloves, and maybe add some goji berries or pistachio at the end. And that's very much a toast. If you put oil with that, you're going to end up with a really gloopy thing to eat afterwards. So blooming, which is what we're going to do today, is when you cook the spices or sort of bring the flavor out of them in a moist heat, so an oil heat. Much better for ground spices. And if your spices are a little bit old, the addition of the oil actually sort of helps to activate the smell and sensation. You'll get more flavor coming through your dish. When you're thinking about spices at home, you want to be storing them in a dark space. So if they're out on a shelf, you want to be keeping them in a tin like this, or in a sort of a box. I buy these ones boxed up already. So the glass jarred ones that you get like this, you want to be making sure that you have them inside a cupboard because they oxidize with the light quite quickly. So keep them in a dark space. If you're looking at your herbs and how to keep your herbs lasting nice and long, trim off the bottom of your bunch of herbs and then put them into a jar or a jug with some water. Make sure there's no black or yellowing leaves in there, and they should keep for quite a while. This is like a 3-day-old bunch of herbs, and it's like it was when I bought it. Today's recipe, I'm going to cook on the hob in Le Creuset, any sort of cast iron pan, Dutch oven, I think they call them in America. Amanda, you can correct me on that.
We do. Yep, it's a Dutch oven, and I grew up in the UK. So, okay, let me get this straight. Is a Dutch oven is the same as a Römertopf in German? Yes.
Okay, right. So basically, cast iron pan, because the heat's going to be conducted much better through one of those. You could use just a stainless steel saucepan, it would be fine, but I really find cooking one of these at the heat is really well displaced throughout the cooking. I'm going to talk to you at the end about cooking in an Instapot or a pressure cooker. I have one I prepared earlier so that we can keep the lesson going quite quickly. And I'll tell you about the timings and stuff for that later on. So interestingly about the heat points with cooking with these two different things. So in here, when I used a temperature probe, I found that at the hottest point, this was about 98.4 degrees centigrade. Amanda, what's that in Fahrenheit?
It's about 200. It's
okay.
It's just under 100 degrees centigrade. So that's 100 degrees centigrade is 212 Fahrenheit for those of us in the US.
And it stays in there for about 30 to 45 minutes. In the Instapot, it goes up to about 120. And that's for about 10 minutes, and then it will cool down as the steam starts to be released.
That's still a pretty low temperature because 100, that's about 250 Fahrenheit. So,
okay.
Yes.
So in terms of spices and the heat that they get up to, they're not getting too hot. But when we're looking at sauteing them in oil, it could be up to 200 degrees centigrade, which I think is around about 400. Is that right, Amanda?
Yeah, it's about 400.
Which seems really, really high. And I think, Amanda, you've got some research on spices and if they go too high, it sort of denatures the properties that we're looking for in them.
Yes. Yeah, because we're inherently looking at those bioactives. And actually, while you're just talking about heat, so actually in the course, we'll actually be showing you, which temperatures and which spices, but heat actually enhances the antioxidant capacity of many spices. There's a limit, but if you were just creating a paste and using that, not many people would use a raw paste, then you're not going to get that same benefit as by blooming or heating the spices.
You can saute in liquid, but not with spices. You're going to end up with basically just a paste that you're warming through. It's not going to have the same chemical reaction, the chemical change that happens. And if you were sauteing vegetables in liquid, like a stock or water, which you can do, we're going to be talking about glycation a lot in the course, but you're going to lose that caramelization, the changes in the sugar structures in the vegetables. So if you think about onion, and when you caramelize that and the sweetness that comes out of it through the caramelization, But that is also glycation. Brown bread, you know, the outside of the bread is glycation when it's cooked in the oven. So we're going to be coming into that a lot in the course as well. You can add spices just at the end of the cooking. You don't have to start them off at the beginning, but they're going to add more depth of flavor through the dish as they cook. And you'll get a more powdery taste if you're adding them right at the end. Spices like cumin or fenugreek, which are really quite hard, and if you put them straight into liquid, I don't know if you can see them in my bowl there, not
just push it up a tiny bit more. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So they're quite hard, and if you just put them into liquid, they don't really soften. You might end up with little kind of seeds in your teeth. When you put them into the oil actually kind of breaks down the outside fiber a little bit and makes them slightly more digestible in that point.
And I think spices are lipophilic, right? So it's those aromatics, you know, that will actually transfer to the oil. There's actually a beautiful piece of research that just came out called, you'll appreciate this, Kate, the power of the sofrito. So the sofrito is, you know, the holy trinity. It's a mirepoix, so carrots, celery, and onions. And when they're actually cooked in an oil, and when you add maybe tomatoes, put them in a tomato sauce, it enhances the bioactive availability. So oil is, you know, we spent decades avoiding it. now it's back in its vogue. So anyway, off you go there, Kate.
So I'm adding about just over a tablespoon. You could add up to 2 tablespoons of oil to the pan. I'm just going to heat my pan up. I have one of these I completely forgot what the name of it is. Induction hobs. Sorry.
Induction hobs. Yeah.
And so it heats up incredibly quickly. I'm still kind of gauging the temperature level of it. But so if you have a ceramic hob or a gas hob, you're going to be looking at slightly different levels. I've got this on about 8 or 9 on here. What you're looking for is when you sort of put, obviously everybody feels heat differently as well, but when you're putting your hand over the pan, you want to be able to feel the heat coming through, but not that it's like a ferocious heat. It wants to just be, it's starting to get more than warm, basically, but not kind of too far over the top. So I'm just going to let this.
So in other words, you don't want to be like rapidly pulling your hand away because it's an intense heat. You can keep your hand hovering there. Kate, what oil are you using? Are you using coconut oil?
Yes, so I'm using coconut oil here because we're using a coconut cream in the sauce as well. So it's going to add that nice coconut background flavor to it. Also, where it's a saturated fat, it can take the heat a little bit more. Something we're going to be talking about in the course is what oils, what fats to use, how we use them in cooking, and how they react whilst cooking in terms of nuts and seeds as well. So I put I put 2 tablespoons in. It's actually quite a lot of oil, but it'd be nice in terms of the flavor coming through. But you could definitely go down to 1 tablespoon of this.
Just a question on the coconut oil. So this is an unrefined coconut oil, right? So it's saturated, unrefined. So
I've got full organic extracted coconut oil here.
So it's going to add flavor.
Brands, really, should I? But so we have, I don't know what you have over in the States, Amanda, but here we have a company called Ocado that do delivery. So I live out in Dorset in the middle of pretty much nowhere. And although I have supermarkets near me, they're not necessarily going to supply a range of things like coconut oil. So I actually go onto Ocado and they will have all their different coconut oils on, and I'll look for the raw ones and I'll find the ones they have on special offer and things like that. And so it's quite useful if you've got a company that delivers to you and will give you a range of different things. So because, so I'm going to put the fennel and the fenugreek and the cumin in. So I've got 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds and ½ a teaspoon of fenugreek. So cumin can be quite a strong flavor. I tend to try and not to use too much when I'm cooking with it. And the fenugreek is a nice flavor, but it can be too much. It can go a little bit bitter if there's too much in there. It brings out depth and roundness of the other spices though. So it's a really nice kind of background flavor. So I've just put in ½ a teaspoon of that so as not to add in too much.
It's also mucilaginous as well, if I remember correctly. So it
great for sprouting as well. You know, fabulous thing to get sprouting with. I did actually try to sprout my Bart's fenugreek seeds. They weren't having any of it. They've obviously
been around too long.
Yeah. Well, they're new seeds, but I think they, so a lot of spices that aren't organic in this country, they zap them I need to check exactly with what, but I think they kind of make sure there's nothing living still in them.
Yeah, it's a big issue with radiation spices. I'll be talking about that too.
Yeah,
What does that
yeah.
imply?
So all these things are going to come up in the course in much greater detail. So I'm just going to turn my oil up just ever so slightly. So it's, let me show you what's going on in the pan here. The oil is kind of just like a little froth on it, but it's not actually really cooking the seeds. I want to see a little bit of a fizz, a bit more fizz around them. And then I'm going to add 9 cloves of garlic. It sounds like a lot, but actually it just adds such beautiful depth of flavor through. With garlic, you want to make sure you chop your garlic, or at least crush it, even if you just kind of take your clove and just put your knife down on it and kind of break it a little bit just for 10 minutes before you actually cook it, or chop it as I did and leave it for 10 minutes. And that activates the enzyme in it so that you have the alanase, and that's the kind of brings out the antioxidants and the components that we want for our health benefit. And if you eat it straight, if you put it straight in the pan without activating that enzyme, you're not going to get it. And that enzyme is what gives out that sulfury compound as well, that real smell. So it's only, you know, this garlic clove's been sitting here for about less than 10 minutes and it hasn't smelled at all. Now that I've kind of whacked it and crushed it, I can really smell that sulfur compound coming out, and it will get stronger and stronger over the 10 minutes before I would cook with it. So,
and of course, you'll be showing us how to mince garlic in the course, right? So we've got that
so
one.
There'll be lots of cooking techniques happening. We're not going to be sort of focusing on cooking techniques so much, but as the course goes through, there'll be a lot of techniques I'll be showing you as we go into it. So the garlic, I put the garlic in just before the seeds started to colour. So and I'm going to add the rest of the spice in a minute. So I don't want the garlic to brown too much. I want I want everything else to go in there just before it browns. So,
because if you brown garlic, it can give off a bitter and a burnt flavor.
Yeah, it sort of oxidizes it a bit, I think. So then I'm putting in 1 teaspoon of turmeric and a tablespoon of ground coriander. So I think in the States you call the leaves cilantro.
Cilantro, yes, but the powder is coriander. Yeah, we we always have to make sure we translate things, you know, with our common English language here. But go ahead.
That in the oil very quickly, and now I'm going to add my tomatoes. So this is a 400 gram tin of tomatoes. So
basically, it's equivalent to our like 14, 16 ounce can. Correct. In the US, right?
If you are, if your clients or you yourself are on a low FODMAPs or a specific carbohydrate diet, you may not be able to consume the garlic or onions. And this, I can never say it right. Asafoetida.
Yeah.
And it's got an amazing, it smells like onions, and it's a great way of getting that sort of oniony flavor coming through into a dish. So
that's a great point. So if you have somebody who's following a FODMAPs diet, and you know, we love the flavor of onions, you can use that instead of onion. Would it replace garlic too, or it's not the same?
Yeah, it gives that sort of sulfury flavor. I tend to get my clients to make a garlic oil. So putting cloves of garlic, making sure they're not crushed like this, that they're just kind of, you know, the skin is taken off them, but they're still whole. And they put them in some olive oil in the oven at about just under 50 degrees. So no more than 50 degrees centigrade. So I guess that's just under 100 Fahrenheit. And I can't remember the exact temperature, but we can talk about that in the course. And the garlic just infuses the oil, and then they have that there to utilize. And we're going to talk a lot about like flavored oils and stuff in the course as well, where you're not getting the fibers coming through, but which is obviously what we're wanting to avoid, particularly with low FODMAPs. So yeah, that's something that we'll be talking about. Just want to talk to you also about peeling garlic. So using a
ginger. Is that ginger or garlic?
Getting muddled up. So to peel ginger, using a teaspoon, you can really, really easily take off the skin of a piece of ginger. I'm obsessed about garlic now. We started talking about it. And rather than a knife, you remove the least amount of ginger. And so I'm just going to do that, and then so I'm using about sort of an inch piece of ginger. So I've peeled it with my spoon.
And are you grating on like the fine side of?
Finest, yeah. So it's not the one that's kind of like got the bits that come out. This is just the very small grater.
Hold it up to the camera so we can see that, like which side you're using. Yeah. Okay, so turn it around the other side.
And drop it.
Yeah, that's like, oh, yeah. So not the teeny tiny side. It's the, yeah, okay.
Not the great big side like that. It's not the one that's got the bits sticking out.
And you could use a microplane too, I guess.
You could. What you don't want to get is all the fiber coming through. So by using this one, the fiber is kind of being left behind, and what I'm getting is the liquid and the flesh coming through.
The juice.
Doesn't matter if you have the fibers in there, but they can kind of get stuck in your teeth afterwards, and it can be a little bit like having a hair in a dinner, which is obviously what you want. So I grated about an inch of the ginger, and then I'm just going to pop that into the dish.
So what you're doing is you're slowly building up like the aromatics and the flavor. So if you put everything in at once, Kate, would it be like a flatter flavor?
Yeah, you could fry the ginger off at the start, but I think it's kind of quite nice, the potency of the flavor that comes through when it is put in a little bit later like this. And then I'm just going to turn my pot back on again. So I'm then going to add the mung beans. So these have been soaked in water for about 4 hours. So they're also called mung, M-O-O-N-G as well. They're actually what you sprout for bean sprouts.
Oh, so that's
interesting. Probably quite sort of familiar with them, but not in this this shape and format. They only take about 4 hours of soaking beforehand.
When you soak them, do you just soak them in water, or did you add anything?
No, I just soaked them in water. You have to be quite careful with lentils and legumes. If you add salt too early on, it can harden them up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I've been doing a lot of work with my new pressure cooker, the Instapot, and realizing you can actually add salt as they're cooking, whereas if I was cooking on the stove, I tend not to add salt. I tend to add that later on because I find particularly chickpeas and things like that tend to harden up a little bit. So I'm then going to add, this is 3 cups of, so that was 1 cup of mung beans, or that is 220 grams. And then this is 3 cups of water going in, or 750 milliliters. I'm going to bring that up to the boil, and then I'm going to turn it right down to a simmer for about 30 minutes or so.
Can you just show us what's in your pot there before you turn that up? Hold that to the camera.
It looks a little bit just kind of like orangey.
Kind of like a watery stew.
Everything.
What's interesting in the dish, Kate, is, we've added layers and layers of bioactives, which we'll talk about in a course. What is the significance, biochemically? What are they doing with our human operating system? How would you explain this to your clients beyond, hey, they're healthy for you? But you've also used the oil, so from coconut oil. And you also are using tomatoes, which are rich in lycopene, but the form of lycopene that is translated when we heat tomatoes actually has this food gene crosstalk capability that you would not get in raw tomatoes. So, when you start to understand culinary science through the lens of nutrition science, nutritional biochemistry, the conversation changes. And that's one of the things we wanted to bring out in this course. Yeah. So our curry is now cooking.
Yeah, so that one's on. I've got one I made earlier in the pressure cooker. So to this, I'd be adding, once it's cooked, about a teaspoon of salt. And when I measure that out, it's about 3, so I use a Maldon sea salt, a flaked sea salt. It's about 3 pinches, pretty much. You could easily reduce that down. You could, and if you're adding it at the end, you know, it's something that you can really kind of add to your own taste. If you're putting it in earlier, I'd probably do about half that and make sure that's the amount of seasoning that you want at the end. You can always add more salt, but taking it away is a lot harder. And that's something that we're going to go through in Flavor Fundamentals. We're going to talk a lot about how you add things without using salt, other flavors to kind of bring up that depth that you want in a dish. So just undo this.
And I'm going to come back on camera now. I've been watching away, but take myself off camera so I'm not distracting from what's going on in the kitchen. But there's the Instant Pot. So how long did it take? You have to hold that right up for us. Yeah. Tip it a little bit. There you go. Can't really see it so much, but we kind of can imagine.
So before the course happens, I'm going to be working on my camera angle in the kitchen and potentially having two cameras, so we have one looking down as well. So I will get a little bit out into a bowl quickly so you can see.
And you know what, too, in the course, we can do like photographs too, which that's beautiful. So we can actually photograph the finished dish. So that when you get the recipes, you'll actually not only see what we've done on camera, but you'll have a nice accompanying photo too. So you're going to finish this off now, right?
Really quickly finish this off. So it's super hot, so I'm not worrying about like actually heating the coconut milk through. So this is a 400 gram or 14-ounce tin of coconut milk. I'm just going to stir that in.
This is where it really takes it to the next level. You know, I think most of us love that, you know, flavor of Thai food and Asian food, and how, you know, coconut oil just not only brings up beautiful flavor, but you're also adding another kind of lipophilic layer, right? Another layer which we can draw the aromatic flavors and capacity of spices into that medium.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings a real nice creaminess to the tomato in there. But then I'm going to lift that and freshen that with coriander. So I've just sort of rolled the leaves around a little bit in my hand, and I'm holding them down, and then I'm just going to slice them finely with my knife. Let me change the camera angle there.
So coriander, for those of us in the US, this is cilantro. Yeah. Yeah. So that's quite a chunk. That's what, like a really good handful of fresh cilantro.
Yeah. So I think we talk about in the recipe, I think I've stated about 30 grams. You don't have to use this much, but it really kind of, I mean, this is a curry for probably, there's enough there for about 6 people. So if you divide this up into 6, you're probably only going to be getting actually about that much. So you have to kind of think about how many people are going to be having this. We're also going to add some lime to it as well to really kind of bring that flavor around as well. So let me just throw the coriander in first, then I'm going to squeeze the limes in.
So you're adding, with the acid, you're adding another dimension of flavor. Like you've got savory, you're adding acidity, you have the salt.
Yeah, we're going through all the flavors in there, and you'll find that the acidity kind of enhances the salty savoriness as well, and that's really important in terms of making sure that you've got enough depth in your dish and that you're not just seasoning with salt the whole time.
Correct. That's as I said for years, some of the way that our clients think they can fix what's, quote, wrong with a dish is through salt, or, you know, unfortunately tomato ketchup, or we say cheese in the United States, you know, it's like, and so, you know, we're trying to teach how to build flavor from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Different techniques, how to fix flavor when it's off, you know, and how do you do that? Because I think many people can follow a recipe, but no matter how much we've tested it, sometimes it's not quite right. So how do you teach them how to balance something when maybe one of the ingredients wasn't quite fresh? So here it is. That's beautiful. Okay. Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, that's lovely. Okay.
Just lovely. So it's a bit of a kind of soup in a way. And, you know, I'd like to serve this with either some brown rice, which we're going to talk about. We're going to be cooking grains in one lecture and about how to cook them perfectly. Some quinoa would go nicely with this, or a cauliflower rice as well. And
she gets to taste some we can't.
Perfectly flavored. There's beautiful balance in that. I don't need to add anything else to it. You've got the depth of flavor in there. The salt is bringing out the beauty of tomatoes, but also the creaminess of the coconut. You've got the lime is kind of bringing out that sort of that freshness and lifting it. And then you've got the coriander in there, just adding that top note of freshness and a little citrusiness to it as well. And obviously the citrus from the lime.
And also the addition, sorry, Kate, the addition of the fresh herbs at the end, we'll talk a lot about that in the section on herbs and spices, but what you're also doing is upping the antioxidant capacity, because inherent to some of these herbs, particularly the Mediterranean herbs, which cilantro is not one, traditionally, they have the capacity to turn on the body's own endogenous antioxidant production system. So, you know, that this dish is actually a beautiful translation of nutrition science and nutritional biochemistry with a nod to what we want to know from the culinary science to produce not only a beautifully flavorful, balanced dish, but it's scientifically informed for us as health professionals. You know, you've actually gone through all the steps to translate the inherent nutrition science into something that's flavorful, easy, but also gives us return on information from the health professional side, but return on ingestion for our clients. So fantastic. Kate, did you want to add anything else to the dish? And then
just something about coriander or cilantro. It's from the parsley family. And it's really useful in terms of aiding digestion and lowering or reducing bloating. So parsley tea or even coriander tea, taking 10 leaves and putting it into hot water and drinking after a meal can really aid in that digestion. Also, the spices that we've used, a lot of them are fantastic for digestion as well. Like the cumin can really ease bloating and gas.
And Greek as well.
Yeah, and these particular mung beans as well seem to be the easiest to digest out of the legumes. So, you know, really it's kind of quite an easy dish on the digestive system as well.
And one way you could change up the spice flavors too, right? You know, you've got that foundation, so you can manipulate that depending on food tolerances, being ethnically or culturally sensitive. But it's that medium that you're working with, the tomatoes and the coconut, that really allows the flavors of the spices to bloom, but also translates their sort of inherent bioactive capabilities into a medium that the body's responsive to. And, you know, I think that's really what we want you to know about the course, to put it all together for you here, that even though you're going to pick up on, you know, cooking tips and ideas, the focus of the course is not to make you a better cook. Most of us know how to cook. It's how to take the culinary science to a level where you are really optimizing the nutrients and the information that's in food, so that when you provide a recipe or provide education to your clients, family members, whoever, you have really fine-tuned your advice beyond, hey, this tastes great and this is healthy or this is rich in vitamin C or whatever, which is important. What we want to do is enhance your knowledge so that what lands on your client's plate is in the best informative form for human biochemistry and subsequently health. Would you say that's a good summary, Kate?
It's the questions I wanted answered as a chef, as a nutritional therapist. I felt there was something lacking still in my knowledge in terms of the science behind it all, that, you know, beyond what we were taught at college. And I really wanted to fill that gap, not just for myself, but for other practitioners as well out there. And I think we've done it. So
yeah. So just to sort of end this, real quick, you know, our course is launching March 2nd this year. It's called Culinary Fundamentals for Clinicians and Coaches. It is designed for nutrition and health experts and health coaches who may be working with us as experts. We focus in on nutrition science and food science, culinary science, and the practical combination or translation of those three fields of science in the kitchen. So it's replete with tips, obviously founded in science. And the way the course works is it's divided into a number of modules, each one focusing on a specific food area or food or culinary area. So for example, flavor, working with flavor and balancing flavors, working with seafood, legumes, grains, ferments, herbs, spices, fats, nuts and seeds. So we're really going through, multiple food categories. And in each category, the session, it's divided into two parts. The first is the food science. So you would listen in on the food science. That's one part of the session, recorded separately. And then you follow that session where Kate translates it in the kitchen. So you're seeing how the food science translates. And of course, picking up lots of tips, techniques along the way. Each session has its own recipes. So there's more than 40, maybe 40. If I know you, Kate, there'll probably be 60 or 80 recipes that comes with this course.
Quite large on the recipe front, yeah.
And they're
not necessarily all recipes that we're going to be cooking in the course. Some of them are extensions of what we're doing. So I'll be kind of giving you an example of how to do something, like the grains, for example. And then there'll be a few recipes that kind of lead on from that as well. So, same with there's a section in herbs and spices, on sauces and accompaniments to go, that come from herbs and spices. We're not going to be doing every single one. I think there's like 15 recipes in that module already. So, I'll be picking one or two or three of them out of the different compartments. And then you'll have these extra ones that will be done in a similar manner. So you're going to end up with a really good recipe book alongside it.
But a very targeted one. It's not just about healthy cooking. It's the translation of food science and culinary science. So we can provide answers with precision that are informed by science to some of the many questions we have, like we said, and to those that our clients have. So, so that's the course. It's it's self-paced, it's self-studied. It's a mixture of pre-recorded sessions and live sessions with 4 live office hours. So you can join us on Saturdays where we can chat about what we've released already in the course. We can answer your questions. So we hope you've enjoyed the little insights here. This was just a brief glimpse at what's coming in the course. And the recipe, if you like the recipe, is beautiful mung bean and coconut curry recipe. If you're signed in to the Genomic Kitchen's newsletters for health professionals and practitioners, you will get this recipe next week in our Genomic Kitchen Science Notebook email that's coming. If you're listening in for the first time, just go to thegenomickitchen.com, sign up for a newsletter, and be sure that you sign up for the one that's for health practitioners, chefs, professionals, and then you'll get this recipe. So we both hope you enjoyed listening in on this video. We hope you're really excited about this course. We are. It's the only one in the world that really puts all this together with the view of the clinician, health practitioner in mind. And the course rolls on March 2nd. So you can find all the information at genomickitchen.com. Look under courses and choose health professionals. It's there. And you'll see Kate and I also talking a little bit more about the course and why we put it together. So we hope you enjoyed it, everyone. And we will see you in the kitchen March 2nd or whenever you join us. Thanks, everyone.